Hey everybody, no mai haere mai and welcome back to my channel. I just thought this is just a little short one and I wanted to introduce my book to you called Taming the MG Dragon. And this book is about the myasthenia gravis crisis stage. This is part 2 of my kōrero around living with a rare disease called myasthenia gravis. So I just thought that I would talk to you a little bit more about the next phase of myasthenia gravis, or MG. Now, but firstly I want to say that sometimes MG is not that serious. You can get sort of eyes that are looking in the wrong direction because the muscles have stopped working, so your eyeballs don't, and your eyesight changes as well. And that's when it is called ocular myasthenia gravis, because it's mainly in the eyes and in the head part. But MG can move from being in the head down into the throat, into the bulbar muscles and into the body, and it becomes generalized myasthenia gravis. And so I went from having ocular MG to experiencing the more serious crisis of MG. And it all started because around 2015 I had a really sharp pain in my chest, and it was an unusual pain around about here, and it was like something was poking out to get out of my chest, which is really weird. And it was there for a little while, and after about 3 days I ended up at the emergency department, and they were kind of perplexed as well. So anyway, I had, as you do in the ED, I had an x-ray, and then I had a CT, and then after that I had to meet with the doctors, who had grave looks on their faces, and I was like, oh no. And they said I had some sort of mass in my chest. This was 2015. Remember, I got diagnosed in 2011. So I freaked out. I didn't quite know what to do with that bit of information. But they couldn't conclude what that mass was, but it wasn't good. That's for real. It was sinister. You know how they sometimes say things aren't sinister? Well, it was sinister. So anyway, from there it was kind of a flurry and a whirlwind of referrals, of meetings with different specialists, the neurologist, the cardiothoracic surgeon in Wellington. So I went to the surgeon. He was really good. He looked at my papers and he said, well, we'll get you in next week. And I'm thinking, oh, that's really quick. But anyway, I was grateful, because it's best to get in early than late. He said, what you've got is a tumour. It's sitting in your chest. And the best thing to do is try and get that out now, as ASAP. So we did that. The next week I went in, I was admitted, got into a ward, and I was being prepared for a 5-hour operation. A 5-hour operation that involved opening up my chest, you know, like a heart. Well, it was around the heart and lungs, so it was opening up my chest and everything. But before then you do all your preps, blood tests and so on. And yeah, so I went for my operation. I mean, I'm making a long story pretty short, because it's something, if you ever get myasthenia gravis, it would be interesting for you to know what could be involved. See, before I had gone into the hospital, I had that pain. Anyway, So that happened. My sister came in. My sister stayed with me all the way through, and my brother helped with the driving, and they were awesome. They looked after me because it was a very, very scary time. It was a life or death kind of moment, really, in my life. And so I stayed in there. I was in there for 2 weeks. I could hardly move. I was 59, and I had my chest opened up and then sewn back together again, and so I had stitches all the way down here, and the stitches, you could see them. I had to have kind of ointment and stuff like that to try and help them heal. But it's not unusual for people who've had this issue to have one of those operations, especially if it becomes malignant, and my tumour had become cancerous or malignant. Sometimes in MG people can get the tumour but it's benign, in other words it's not cancerous, so they can get it out through some sort of kind of, I don't know, it's much easier than opening up the chest anyway. But mine had gone on and grown and developed into a cancerous, so that's the risk with a thymoma. It can grow into a cancerous growth. So anyway, I had that, but the cardiothoracic surgeon, and I've forgotten his name now, but he was really good and very thorough. He said, I think we got it all. So, and there was a little bit, you know, because if a tumour starts to grow, it starts to touch other organs in your chest. So bits of those organs had also had to be kind of sliced off where the tumour had touched, because you can't see the microscopic cells that come out of the tumour. So anyway, a little bit of my heart casing was taken off, and a little bit of my lung, just a sliver, was taken off where the tumour had touched it. And as far as I know, they got the whole thing out, so that was the main thing. However, they did say it will take you 6 weeks to heal from this huge operation, and it took me 6 months, not 6 weeks, not 8 weeks. It took me 6 months to start feeling a little bit normal. It was extremely painful for me afterwards, but some people do come through it quite easily, and it does take them 6 weeks, maybe 3 months, but for me it was 6 months. So, and they prefer to do these operations before you reach 60. I'm not sure why, but that's what they prefer, to get the thymoma out before you're 60, and I was 59. So anyway, it was a real adventure, a tough one, and my sister came down with me. She you know, my older sis, she was a bit like a mother to us as well, and she would stay there and do her tānako and sit there and look at me and just, you know, not say anything, but just sit there. And my little brother, he would drive us, come all the way down and drive us, pick us up and drive back. And it was quite a frustrating time for everybody, but we managed to get through, and that's family, isn't it? Family helps you get through these things. So all this time I had my other wider whānau wondering what was going on, and later on I'll tell you about what happened there. But after I got home, I was okay for a little while, and then I got pneumonia and had to go back into hospital, and I was in hospital for 2 weeks. Finally I got through the pneumonia. I had a little bit of a break, and then I had to have radiation therapy. and that was 6 weeks. 6 weeks of radiation right there in the chest, which is a very important part of the human body. You know, it's where it's got your heart and your lungs and your immune system are very important parts of your body and your being. But I had to have radiation therapy right there to target any cells that were left after the thymoma was removed. So we did that. I got prepared. They prepare you. You have to go and get little tattoos where they want the what do you call it? The CT, the rays to go into. And I went through that. It was 6 weeks. 6 weeks of about 20 minutes a day during the work days. And funnily enough, some people were going there after work and, you know, having their radiation therapy and then going back to work. I thought, well, maybe I could do that, but I couldn't. It just wiped me out. By the 4th week, I was wiped out, and I started to get other symptoms of MG. And my eye went first, and I knew I was going to get worse. But it wasn't possible to stop because your radiation therapy is prescribed, so you can't stop in the middle of it. If it's prescribed 5 weeks, then you have to do the 5 weeks. If it's 6 weeks, you have to do the whole 6 weeks. If you stop at 4 weeks, like I wanted to do, then that would disrupt the whole process of getting all the, you know, microscopic cancer cells. So I had to go through the whole 6 weeks. By the end of the 6 weeks, I was really wiped out. I went home, got really sick. I couldn't eat. I was really, really short of breath. I couldn't move. I was very fatigued. It was the myasthenia gravis starting to kick in full on. And I ended up back in hospital again in the ED. And I went back in and I was there for 5 months. And that was the beginning of the crisis. And so that's what this is about. The part of myasthenia gravis that is the crisis stage. Some people don't go through the crisis. They don't have a crisis. But other people do. You know, people like me, I ended up having a crisis. And so while I was in hospital, members of my wider whānau came in, which was really cool. It was really cool to see them. And one of my elder cousins, who's a senior in our extended whānau, he said to me, why don't you think about writing about your experience? And I thought to myself, oh, well, that's the last thing I want to do is write and really delve into all of this, because I was freaked out. I was, dare I say it, I was quite traumatized by the whole experience. Remember, I hadn't been in hospital for most of my life, and now suddenly I was in hospital all the time. So yeah, it was to think that I was going to analyse it and write about it was at that time, it just freaked me out, and I just couldn't think straight about that. But I did think about it, and I guess he sowed the seed of, you know, me having to face it, face the experience of this, and maybe help other people by talking about it, by writing about it, by sharing my experience, helping other people that, you know, I mean, it's not something that's written about, really. The actual patient's experience, the experience of a crisis from the patient's perspective, the patient's experience, and it's something else. You for 3 months, and I was on the vent for nearly 3 months. I had a thing through here, a trachea, because I couldn't breathe and couldn't talk for quite a while, a couple of months. You know, but my brain was going, but my mouth wasn't going. I couldn't talk. So it was really, really very scary, very frustrating. I used to get quite frustrated and throw things, or wanted to throw things, which is really naughty. But I thought, I'm going to be stuck, attached to this vent, this great big vent machine that was behind me on my bed. And I'm not going to be able to do anything but lie here like this. And I just thought, no, that's not happening. I'm not going to stay here like this. And, you know, doctors were coming and saying to me, listen, Mrs. Howe, there's nothing more we can do for you. Maybe you could take the vent home with you if you, but really there's nothing more. If you can't get through this and we can't get you off the vent, there is nothing more we can do for you. And I'm thinking, suffice it as to say, I had a couple of relapses. I had a cardiac arrest. I had 2 relapses, or 2 or 3 relapses, where I nearly died. Or when I had my cardiac arrest, I had it for 30 minutes. So luckily I was in the ICU when I had it, because it probably wouldn't have come out of it. I probably wouldn't have lasted 30 minutes. But because I went into a cardiac arrest because my breathing muscles stopped, but then also my heart muscles stopped. And so there was nothing, no electricity, bioelectricity going on to keep my body going and keep my lungs moving. I was gone. And if it wasn't for the doctors and their manual CPR of me, I'd be a goner if it wasn't for them. To be honest, at this stage I'll say that those doctors saved my life. My neurologist saved my life. The doctors that worked on me after I had a cardiac arrest, they saved my life. And for that I'm really grateful. Very, very grateful. I'll never forget it. So anyway, I did decide in the end to write. And what did I do? I decided to write a book. Not just a few notes, but a book. It's only a little book, but it could be quite helpful for people. And here it is. I called it Taming the MG Dragon. There is a photo at the beginning of this video that is clearer than this. It's got photos in it. And let's see, it is 164 pages long, and it's like this. It's a paperback, because for me paperbacks are much easier to manage and have around, and yeah. So yeah, and I managed to sell it to many. It's been sold to many different countries, many different medical facilities. It's in the Hocken Library in Dunedin. It's in all the libraries in New Zealand, and yeah, and some tertiary institutions have taken it as well as I guess a case study. So yeah, and it did help me, as my cousin had mentioned, to write something, and I did, and it really helped me. So this book itself, it's called Taming the MG Dragon, because for me, while I was in that crisis, it was like I was being hunted by a dragon. I'm very metaphorical, you know. So a dragon that breathes fire on you, a dragon that will engulf you in one bite, will kill you if you let it. That's what it was like. That's what the crisis was like. and taming of that MG dragon, that crisis, was the skills and the weaponry and the medical skills and knowledge that my consultants, my doctors, my specialists and the hospital team had at their, for them to use in order to kill this dragon, or tame the dragon, I should say. You can't actually kill MG, it doesn't go away. It might go into remission if you're lucky. But really, the MG dragon, or the crisis as I like to say, it's not something you want to experience. But if you do, there is a way out of it. Part of it in my epilogue I say 10 things that I have learnt from this experience. Number 1, whānau matters, family matters. We are all part of a group, and whether it's our kin, our spouse, our friends, our church or other group, this is our whānau, and when the chips are down, it is so good to have them around. Whānau matter to us, and we matter to our whānau. So it was really important. I had my wider whānau, but I had my sister, my brothers, and even friends to come and see me at the hospital, and that was just wonderful. Number 2, stubbornness plus determination equals endurance. I'm pretty stubborn, I'm very determined, and so I think that got me through. Throughout chronic illness, don't give up. It's a given that there will be pitfalls, but do what you can to stay focused until you get through it. There is a saying that goes like this: if you're going through hell, keep going. And the third one, the MG dragon can be tamed. It's treatable. And when MG dragon is aggravated, the weaponry required to conquer the dragon's quest for death are the treatments, the medication, and knowledge of your consultants. This special medical weaponry can and does tame the MG dragon.